When Arnold Scwarzenegger first graced the big screen as the legendary Hyborian warrior Conan the Barbarian, it was not just another role. He single-handedly spiked the world's interest in the sword and sorcery genre, bringing a raw and unapologetic brutality to fantasy never before seen in cinema. Now imagine that tone, the blood-soaked adventure-filled tone of Conan, applied to the ultimate demonic antihero. What if the world of medieval barbarians collided with the hellish supernatural underworld of Spawn? Wouldn't that be absolutely crazy? Well, you don't have to just imagine it. Today, we're diving into a comic book miniseries that explores the spectacle of epic, visceral action. Enter Spawn: The Dark Ages. This miniseries is nothing short of awesome. Set during the chaotic collapse of post-Roman Britain, it follows King Aurelianus Ambrosius's efforts to defend his realm and his people from the invading Picts and Saxons. Desperate times call for desperate measures, as they say. Cornered by enemies of his kingdom, Aurelianus forges an alliance with a terrifying being anointed by the old pagan gods, Earl King Yulgrave, known to the Christians as the Devil's Spawn. This masterpiece is brought to life by writer and artist Liam Sharp, whose breathtaking and gritty artwork perfectly encapsulates the brutal era. Alongside legendary creator Todd McFarlane, who helped illustrate the stunning variant covers, Sharp has paved the way for the glorious return of Spawn's most haunting timelines. How exactly does the demonic entity fit into ancient pantheons? Can a fragile mortal king truly survive a pact with a devil-like creature? What happens when the Lord of the Night Hunt is fully unleashed on an army of invaders? Grab your broadswords and staffs, as we're about to find out in this full exploration of Spawn: The Dark Ages. An unlikely and unholy alliance. At the entrance of Londinium, 479 AD, General Attilius, the trusted friend of Lord Aurelianus of Gran Bretagna, asks him once again if he's sure he wants to venture into the old city, which even the Saxons believe to be haunted, and insists on joining him, as it's his duty to attend to his lord. They're standing at the broken bridge that connects Britain to the old pagan city. Aurelianus refuses the help, as the druid Diviciacus had advised him to travel alone past the river Tamasis to the farther bank, where he will meet the cursed city gates, marked by a blood-stained straw cross. From then on, the druid told him that he would be guided to his destiny by the departed. Aurelianus travels through the treacherous path, and after going past the city gates, is attacked by a wild boar. He kills the boar and observes the place he's in. He sees a pathway over which skeletons hang, like a welcoming archway that's also a warning. Soon, a beautiful pagan maiden greets him. She is Danunus, named after both the All-Mother and Death. So fate will decide which of the two will favor Aurelianus. To find out why he's chosen to walk this dangerous path, we have to travel a year back to Fobdown when Saxons had attacked Aurelianus' kingdom. Though the Saxons outnumbered them 3-1, Attilius saw it as each of them getting 3 pigs to slaughter. Aurelianus roused his men with a speech, reminding them that they have nothing to fear as God himself rides beside them, and their bellies are filled with the living blood of his son. With a call for his men to stain the earth red with the blood of the Saxons, Aurelianus and his soldiers unleash hell on their enemies. In the present time, he follows Danunus, keeping aside thoughts of whether she will really lead him to the Earl King or is just tricking him. She gives him a bowl full of steaming liquid to help him with what lies ahead. He wonders whether the Earl King has stooped to poison his enemies, but decides to drink the liquid and surrender himself to God's grace if death is what he is fated to meet. As soon as the liquid touches his lips, his eyes open wide, and he lets the bowl crash down to the floor. He drops to the ground in agony, and as he looks up, he sees the towering figure of the Earl King, wearing a ram's skull as a helmet and his body covered with scars of old battles. The war at Fobdown had stretched on for a year, and Attilius had lost his right arm. Attilius assumed the Saxons had fled after seeing the prowess of Aurelianus' army, but the king could see past the ruse. He knew that the attack had been tactical, and they were merely seeking out their weaknesses. Aurelianus thought that it was not likely that they would attack anytime soon, as they now know that the army's shield wall is impenetrable. Even then, he wanted to switch tactics, as he'd been following the same ancient strategy used at the time of Philip the Macedon. Suddenly, a soldier rode up to him to inform him that King Gillemanius had dispatched raiders from Hibernia to attack villages in the south of Cardiff, and they had abducted many women and children. Hearing the news, Aurelianus curses. With the Picts attacking them from the north, the Saxons from the east, and the Hibernians from the west, he had no break and was doubting his ability to safeguard the Britons. Attilius assured him that he would eventually find a way, and so Aurelianus returned to his throne in Winchester to resume his duties. The way Aurelianus found is clear now, as it's none other than the Earl King. As the Earl King graces his throne, Aurelianus pulls his sword out, demanding to know if he's been driven mad by the potion. The Earl King asks him to put away his sword, as he does not intend to kill him. Aurelianus addresses him as Earl King Yulgrave, or Devil Spawn, and offers a pact with him. Earl King is the lord of the wild hunt, and as long as he was alive, Aurelianus believed there would never be harmony in Great Britain. As the last of the true guardians of the past and the dreadlord of the fallen city of the damned and the dead, Earl King considers Aurelianus his mortal enemy too. To top it all off, the Earl King haunted Aurelianus's people, scaring them with an eternal, godless future. But despite all these differences, the two shared a common enemy, the enemy of Britain. Aurelianus's father had cloistered Earl King within the old city, and his father's alliance with the Saxons had proved to be a mistake. Aurelianus knew that Earl King had enough power to take the throne from him if he wanted to, but if he did do that, he would take over a kingdom surrounded by enemies, and if they could threaten Aurelianus, they would surely be capable of ousting Earl King from the throne. So his proposal is to join forces, as they're both hounded by adversaries, and their union would be the mightiest in all of Christendom. That would surely secure the kingdom for 1,000 years to come. Earl King agrees to the pact under the condition that his people, the pagans, can return to their homes without any threat to their beliefs and enjoy the protection of the crown. As Attilius waits at the bridge, he sees his king arrive with Earl King and his people. Aurelianus declares that it is time for the bridge to be rebuilt. That night, in the cover of darkness, the hooded figure of Attilius rides all the way to the cottage of Father Kentigern. He bangs on his door, and Kentigern asks what ails him at that ungodly hour of the night. Attilius tells him that he needs to speak with him in confidence right now, as he fears for the soul of the king. The devil and the old gods. By the winter of 480 AD, the alliance of Aurelianus and Earl King had turned the tide of the battles. They had slaughtered Saxons that had dared venture to every single area of the kingdom and had driven the Saxons back to the north. As Aurelianus gazes upon the snow-covered land strewn with bodies, he thinks he will sleep soundly that night. Earl King does not think so, as he can't even remember the last time he slept and sees the entire world as if it were a dream. But he bids Aurelianus to sleep well. Aurelianus pities him as he only finds peace in his sleep. Even when nightmares plague him, making him scream and sweat, there is some peace in them as they don't touch the real world. Sleep is a gift, he thinks, as the night is what is to be feared and where the real horrors live. As night surrounds the sky, a hush falls over the camps of Aurelianus. Aided only by the moonlight, 4 sick men attack the camp silently, kill the guards, and take their uniforms. One of them ventures even farther and enters Aurelianus's tent. As he raises his sword to kill Aurelianus, Earl King screams "Assassin!" and drives his sword through him. Aurelianus springs up and grabs his sword, wondering who dares to question their union. Together, the two kill the 4 men. In Winchester, Lady Danunus meets General Attilius, and he tells her that he only attends to her because it's his duty, so their hearts need not lie about what they truly feel about each other. Danunus does not harbor any ill sentiments towards Attilius and has requested to see him so that they can forge bonds and better serve the union of Aurelianus and Earl King, as they serve the good people of the land. Attilius is only concerned about God, who has no place in the heathen heart of Danunus. She tells him that her allegiance lies with the mother of all and is not concerned with the father or anything to do with him. She can see that her hopes are misplaced, though, so she leaves leaves him alone after wishing him a good day. At Hadrian's Wall, Aurelianus defeats the Picts and sends them packing to their kin to warn them that the king and Earl King cometh. The captured Pict king, Lord Drest Gurthenmach, asks Earl King, whom he knows as the god of the night hunt, why he is cheek to cheek with the Britons and against his own kin. The Earl King tells him that if there was peace to be had in shared beliefs, there would be no wars left in the world. Aurelianus offers to unite all the Picts against the Saxons if he rides with them to Winchester. Drest spits at him and is rewarded with a hefty punch from the Earl King. As the moon rises, the Earl King deserts his ferocious helmet and armor, revealing his ghastly face to the night air. He asks the All-Mother why she has forsaken him when he is her firstborn and her king. He asks her whether he is fated to become nothing more than a warrior knave. As spring arrives in Winchester in 481 AD, Father Kentigern meets Lord Aurelianus. He remarks that as the rose blooms, it would serve him well to look after the thorns. Aurelianus orders him to speak plainly. After a lot of hemming and hawing, Father Kentigern inquires about when the unholy alliance with Earl King will come to an acceptable end, which is to drive away the wild devil and his pagan followers back to old Londinium. He asks Aurelianus not to be worried about breaking his word, as something more is at risk: his soul. Devil or not, Aurelianus would not betray someone who helped defeat the Picts. He storms out to the garden to cool off, where Lady Danunus is waiting for him. He tells her that Father Kentigern thinks he's a fool. Danunus consoles him, saying the sun has no mind of its own and only does what it's supposed to. The riddle is not easy for Aurelianus to solve, and he asks with a tilt of his neck whether he is the son in the scenario who does not think without acting, or is it Father Kentigern? Danunus tells him that he thinks too much and leads him to a hidden gate in the garden that leads to a bigger garden. He is shocked as to how it remained hidden for so long. Danunus tells him that it's a place where the old gods are remembered. She asks him whether he has ever considered the fact that, though their young god preaches peace, the wars that are fought in his name are the ones that deal out the most damage to humankind. Aurelianus can only hope that one day his message will be heard in all the four corners of the world and peace will be achieved. She tells him about the gods that she worships: Cernunnos, the god of the cycles, whose goat-like horns and feet were stolen by their good priests to assign to the devil, and Danu, the All-Mother, who brought all life into the world. Danunus was named after both of them, and it was through her and Earl King that the gods lived on. As she broadens the king's knowledge in the beautiful garden, love takes over in the air, and the king kisses Danunus. Her enchantments. Hibernians grow bold come summer and attack Iphyonid whales, looting everything they set their eyes on. A hooded figure watching in a corner throws back his hood, revealing the terrible ram skull of the Earl King. He attacks them with his men, striking fear into the hearts of all the Hibernians. In Winchester, Aurelianus deals with the disrespect of Father Kentigern and General Attilius. He tells them in no uncertain terms that who he beds is none of their business. The news of his affair with Danunus has clearly spread like wildfire. Attilius, always grateful that Aurelianus saved him from slavery, pledges to die for him, even if he whispers it out loud, but he's concerned about his soul. While Aurelianus can believe that this is what Attilius believes, he knows Kentigern has alternate motives in his heart, and he has seen that the church is nothing but a conquering power that even causes kings to tremble before it. Attilius begs him not to turn away from the church, but Aurelianus is not convinced. He wonders if the pagan way of life is best suited to them, as they had helped reunite their kingdom. Before the Holy Roman Empire banished the way of life, they used to follow the pagan way too. He sends them away, as he needs to think about his fate. He frees Lord Drest and offers him the chance to be the king of all Picts once again. Drest tells him that he will have a wee think about it. Father Kentigern heads to the Isle of Thanet to meet with the King of Saxons and paint a terrible picture of the Earl King. He tells him that no man can stand before the abomination, who sloughs off his skin at night like the serpent at Eden. In his true form, he is said to eat the flesh of good men and ravage the innocence of their daughters to breed an army of hell spawns. Kentigern tells the king that he is afraid Aurelianus has fallen to the Earl King's traps and is now an agent of evil. So he asks the king to convert so that the Holy Church can help him take Britannia under his wing. He urges him to listen to him as Aurelianus has turned his back on good Christian people, and it's up to the king to save them from the pagans. In the Garden of the Old Gods, Aurelianus shares his fears about losing Attilius, a good man but an even more dedicated Christian, and the power-hungry Father Kentigern with Danunus. In all of this, he is glad for the companionship and tutelage of Danunus. She assures him that he is a great king, and the tales of his brave and fair deeds will be carried throughout generations. While the king relaxes with his lady love, the Earl King lays waste to another faction of Britain's enemies and asks his men to rest well, as they have fought admirably that day. A rider informs him that Aurelianus requests his return at his earliest convenience, and the Earl King sets out immediately. One of the younger soldiers wonders out loud if he ever rests, and an older soldier tells him that he never does, as it's his curse. The young soldier is shocked that the old soldier trusts Earl King, as he is an evil devil who has caused the king to lose his faith. The old soldier tells him that they would ride to hell and back for him. He doesn't care for the church, as it didn't care for their families, and if he wanted to ask whether he's a devil, he can do so in some other valley. The soldiers all trust Earl King with their lives, and know even if he is a devil, he is the noblest of them all. Aurelianus welcomes the Earl King in Winchester and asks him to celebrate their victory so far. Earl King is not impressed that he made him ride back just for mere celebration, so Aurelianus drops the idea for some brotherly bonding and tells him that there have been whispers about him losing his faith because of Danunus and the Earl King. To maintain peace, the Earl King suggests lying to his people, to be a Christian king, but a pagan man. Aurelianus realizes he has no choice but to do so. Danunus arrives and is very pleased to see Earl King. She rushes to hug him as she missed him a lot and requests to steal him away to attend to his needs. She takes him to the Garden of the Old Gods and gives him a potion so that he may finally sleep. As she caresses his face, she observes that he looks weaker, sadder, and more tired, so she's glad she can provide him with this meager respite. In the name of God. Having completed her duty towards Earl King, Danunus spends some time in the company of the king. She paints herself with woad and draws on Aurelianus' face too, but it only makes him look more grim. Their time off is interrupted by the druid Diviciacus, demanding an audience. Danunus lets him go, as both she and Diviciacus serve the mother. As she walks out, she sees some hooligans not allowing pagans to enter the city despite strict orders from their king. Father Kentigern watches it in glee before turning away. In the garden, Diviciacus asks him to let go of Danunus, as his love would never amount to anything. Aurelianus thinks it will be a good move to marry her, as it would unite all the pagans, but Diviciacus knows it will set his own people against him forever. Aurelianus implores him to find another path for him, one that does not include him deserting Danunus. Attilius is shocked to learn that Father Kentigern met with the Saxon king. He defends his action, as that's what his holy calling demanded for him, and once the Saxon king converted, they would once again live under Christ without any influence of pagan infidels. He tells Attilius that all is not lost yet, and they have time to convince Aurelianus about the error of his ways. Danunus overhears the conversation and calls the priest a traitor for betraying not just the king, but God himself. She turns around to go inform the king, but Attilius blocks the way. While this is going on, Aurelianus has a terrible nightmare of being thrown into the wild seas. He floats about, barely hanging on, and sees Danunus being chased by a demonic figure with goat-like feet and bat-like wings. Danunus runs away and hides in a cave. As she comes out the other end, the demonic being meets her there and drives his sword through her. Aurelianus startles awake and rushes out to make sure she's safe. He meets Diviciacus standing by the door and asks him to move away as he explains his dream. Diviciacus sees it as a confrontation of what he said earlier and asks him to let her go. Aurelianus rushes past him, as he loves her too much to let her go. Diviciacus walks to the Garden of the Old Gods, where Earl King is fast asleep. Though he is not an enemy of Diviciacus, he must kill him, as he should be removed from events that are yet to pass. So he drives the sharpened end of his oak staff through his chest. The staff had been tempered with potent poisons, like Atropos belladonna and Wegbray. Earl King screams awake and pokes out the only good eye of the druid. Weak and afraid, he stumbles out, begging for Danunas and her help. Danunas is in a fix of her own, as Attilius refuses to let her go unless they all arrive at a reasonable solution. Kentigern doesn't think godless heathens should be trusted. Danunas asks Kentigern to shut up and reasons with Attilius. She tells him that if he's truly loyal to King Aurelianus, he would kill the treacherous monk himself. Attilius is torn between loyalty to the king and loyalty to God, so Danunas takes it upon herself to kill the priest. As she lunges at him, Attilius blocks her attack with a jar and fights her back with it. Danunas hits him back with the wooden chair she found, and he drops down unconscious. Desperate to get out of there alive, Kentigern takes the less than noble path and stabs Danunas from behind. He accuses her of making him a fugitive and sneaks out to let her die alone. Earl King, now weaker than before, tries to get to the palace at Winchester, but is stopped by the soldiers who think he is nothing but a ghoul. Just like that, within seconds, it looks like Aurelianus lost the loyalty of his trusted friend and the life of his one true love, and is on the brink of losing his strongest ally, too. Spawn the Dark Ages is a delightful mixture of history and fantasy. A notable shift in the world came about with the advance of Christianity, one that threatened the existence of paganism, various faiths rooted in the celebration of the earth, nature, and the maternal. This subject has been of great interest in literature, with works that include The Mists of Avalon by Marion Zimmer Bradley and Julian by Gore Vidal. Now, Spawn the Dark Ages joins the list with art that is simply delightful. You know, many pages of the comics could easily be mistaken for paintings hung in the Louvre. My favorite part of the comics is the characters. Each character, from the easily misled Attilius to the brooding Aurelianus, is well developed with their own follies and strengths. Liam Sharp does a great job balancing the gothic dark art with dialogue that feels like they were pulled out of a poetry book. If you can appreciate good art and want to be dazzled by a story of magic and war, of friendship and betrayal, you cannot choose better than Spawn the Dark Ages. Once you read it, let me know what you like best about it. The comment section is wide open. I hope you liked the video, and if you did, let me know by smashing that thumbs up, subscribing to our wonderful channel, and ringing that bell icon to always stay up to date with our content. I'll soon be back with more wonderful explorations, but until then, goodbye.